Good morning and welcome to the Oasis Center for Spiritual Living, where we come together as one, providing spiritual tools for daily living. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Reverend Tucker. I'm the senior minister here at the Oasis, and I always like to introduce the wonderful team that God has provided me to manage. I like to start out first with my faithful assistant, Faith. There she is. She's basically been my assistant since she was like 3 weeks old, although she was her dad's assistant at first anyway. He would work the soundboard with one hand and hold her with the other. But as soon as she was able to crawl, she became my assistant. She crawled up on the stage and she just hung out up there because she acted like she belonged up there. So I had a portable mic and I would just step over or whatever. And we'd put her on the podium and have her do announcements with me. And I think people paid more attention to the announcements with this cute little baby up there. But, they live 6 blocks from my house. And so her dad was a tow truck driver. And anytime he would go on out of town tows, he would bring the girls to my house, Faith and her sister. And I always had projects going because that's just how I live. And so I got to see how Faith worked. So when she was 14 and a half and she said, I want a real job this year, I hired her for my ozone business. And, she's been my assistant all this time. She, after the pandemic, couldn't return to the business. But then when we went live for the pandemic, I said, I need an assistant. Do you want to be my ministerial assistant? She said, yeah. So here we are. And she does everything behind the scenes. I like to say, in The Wizard of Oz, there was an old man behind the curtain. Well, here we have Faith behind the curtain. You pull back the curtain, there she is. But she does everything in the background so I can focus on speaking. Because when it comes to speaking, I can't multitask. I get too distracted. And then I go on and on and on forever because I forget where I was and what I was saying and all that stuff. So this really helps me out quite a bit. So she's the one behind the scenes doing everything. And so we ask that you say hi, hello, good morning, however you want to greet us. Because in a facility, I can look out and see these shining faces beaming back at me. And here, I don't have that luxury. I get a number. I don't even get names. So I don't even really know, who my audience is. And so when you do that, when you say hi, hello, good morning, she answers you as me. And she's pretty accurate. I've only had to go back and answer a question like twice in 5 years. So she knows me better than I know myself most of the time. So, and she is our soloist. And so today we're going to be talking about Turn and Face the Change. And so she's singing The Winds of Change by Karen Drucker. So there you go. And so I couldn't do this without you. So thank you, Faith, for being here. Love you. And then, of course, is my partner in crime, the wise and powerful Oz, who was my first baby practitioner, meaning that, no, I'm busy right now. I have a dog on my lap who thinks it's time for me to pet her, which I can't do and talk at the same time either. Anyway, Oz took all of his training with me except for one class at Mile High Church. So he was my first baby practitioner and then was my board president for many years and served as a licensed practitioner in our church. Well, he moved to Florida, which at that time we didn't have this kind of technology. And so we lost the ability to have him in the service. So when we went live for the pandemic, I'm like, would you be willing to be practitioner of the day? And he said, yeah. I don't think either of us realized that 5 years later, he would still be the one doing that every single week. But here we are. We may be doing it for the rest of our lives, Oz. What do you think?
Sounds good.
Okay. What the practitioner of the day is that he does the invocation, the benediction, and he's available at the end for our 1 minute miracle. And I'll talk more about that at the end. But thank you for being here, Oz. We could not do this without you. Love you. All right. And then I always like to introduce the adjunct music team that we have. The first one is Reverend Fairy Elaine Silver, who did a lot of her music before she became a minister. But she was the first one to tell us or ask us to do her music. and so we are able to have an actual church service that has music, partly because of Reverend Fairy Lane Silver. The other one is Karen Drucker, who gifted us with her entire collection of CDs so that we could do music in our service. And so we couldn't do it without these two ladies at all. I mean, literally, you'd see a talking head for an hour is basically what would happen. Or we would cut the service short and I'd still only talk like 30 minutes. But even so, I really think that music opens the heart so that the mind is open. So I feel like the music part of this is pretty important. And then we had a singer from like 2000 to 2020, actually 2021, I think, Albertina Giuffre, better known as Tina. And she was going to try and sell her house. So she took a break, and the break is a lot longer than we thought it was going to be because she's living her best life now. And so she comes back for what she calls the crying season, which is Mother's Day, Father's Day, and Memorial Day. And then she's also here for a couple weeks during our Advent series leading up to Christmas. But I always like to introduce these people because they are such a part of everything that we do. And God really provided me the best team ever. So, all right. There is a watch party button. So you can click on that, invite all of your friends so they can see what kind of service they can expect to get on a Sunday morning. And you can talk amongst yourselves in case they have questions, because it's a private chat kind of situation. So click on that watch party button and invite all your friends. In the meantime, close your eyes if that feels comfortable. Allow the service to uplift and inspire you as we move into our centering song.
Surely the presence of God is in this place. I can feel the mighty power and the grace. I can feel the rush of angels' wings. I see glory on each face. Surely the presence of God is in this place. Surely the presence of God is in this place. I can feel the mighty power and the grace. I can feel the rush of angels' wings. I see glory on each face. Surely the presence of God is in this place.
Presence of God is always right here, right now. For God, as we conceive of it, is in all things, as all things. It is all that is, and is continuously creating things anew. Therefore, changes as they occur are as a result of this God force in action, in us, as us, through us, and all around us. All that we see, all that we experience, is God manifesting itself as something new at each given moment. And we know that blessings and perfection are the inevitable result of these things. So we could sit and watch and wait for these things to unfold in their perfection, knowing that we have a part to play in shaping what happens in our lives and around us. We know this is good and very good, and we give thanks that this is so, and we let it be. And so it is.
And so it is. Thank you, Oz. If you're just joining us, please say hi, hello, good morning, however you want to greet us. When we're in a facility, I can look out and see the shining faces beaming back at me. Here I get a number. I don't even get names. So we really ask that you do that. If you like something that you hear, either something I say or Oz prays or Faith sings, use that thumbs up button to let us know you like it. And if you love it, send us hearts because we love to get love. And if something strikes you as powerful, by all means, use that wow button. It really lets me know when I'm on track, so I appreciate the feedback. All right, this next song is one that Reverend Fairy Elaine Silver wrote while she was in practitioner training. And it's a great reminder that we are all connected by it, through it, as it.
We are all one. We are all one. We are all one in it. I hear it and know it, my being. Spirit is all I am seeing. For God is all there is. Grateful am I to be living, open to what I have seen, honoring what I've been given, sharing now what I believe. I remember the oneness around me. I surrender to infinite light, knowing the love that's surrounding me is within me by day and night. And we are all one. We are all one. We are all one in it. Yes, we are all one. We are all one. We are all one in it.
Yes, we are all one in it. I love that song. Reverend Lynn and I studied the Red Path, and one of the things was the wind, and I'll talk a little bit about that more, but creating wind as our ally. And so I love that we're doing Turn and Face the Change, and I also love that we're talking about, or we're, playing the song We Are All One, because really in the Native American path, Ho Mitakuye Oyasin is all my brethren, we are related. And so it crossed paths with the Native American tradition as well. All right, so that's pretty much it. And I'm going to turn this over to Miss Faith, as she's going to be singing Turn and Face, The Winds of Change by Karen Drucker, which is, by the way, on the Joy of Love CD.
Take me with you, I'm ready to go. Let the winds of change shape and blow. Now I am willing to see another part of me. Take me with you, I'm ready to go. Let the winds of change shape and blow. Now I am willing to see another part of me. Take me with you, I'm ready to go. Let the winds of change shape and blow. I am willing to start a brand new chapter of my heart. Take me with you, I'm ready to go. Let the winds of change shape and blow. I am willing to make a choice. This new path needs my voice. Take me with you, I'm ready to go. Let the winds of change shape and blow. 'Cause I am willing to let go. I surrender, and I know I am willing to let go. I surrender, and I know I surrender, and I know I surrender, and I know.
For those of you who are new here, I have a chihuahua on my lap, so we don't clap loud because it startles her. But I always like to clap, so I acknowledge the talented voice of Faith. So thank you very much. Oh my goodness. All right. The winds of change are really blowing right now. The other night it was really funny because I went to put my big dog out, or it was the daytime. No. And I had to be at my office at a certain time, and I give her lunch, and then she goes out and goes potty. I could not get this dog to go outside because the wind was howling and whatever. Then I get her to go outside, and she keeps running back to the door, and I'm like, no, you need to go to the bathroom. And she's like, no, I don't want to be out here. The wind is so bad. She's never been like that before, but she's 13 years old now, and so I don't know if the wind is maybe hurting her ears or whatever. But when the time changes, or when the season changes, from summer to fall, and the wind starts blowing, my neighbor and I usually really grieve that change because we live for summer. During the winter, we're pretty much inside our homes. We don't even hardly see each other. And then during the summer, we're outside all the time. So, but when it changes from winter to spring, I get excited because summer's coming. But also because I can't remember the ditty now. It's like the wind of March brings April showers, something about, Mayflowers. And so I've always celebrated that. But the wind used to be kind of my nemesis, sort of, because I'd steel myself against it. Do you ever do that? You steel yourself against the wind? Like, oh God, I have to brace yourself, and Reverend Lynn and I studied with a holy man in the Native American path, and we did this for like 12 years, and they were really they really stressed the idea that you have to make the wind your ally, meaning that you open your heart and you allow the wind to blow through you instead of stealing against it, right? And so I for several years had difficulty with that exercise, but then I started embracing it and welcoming it and letting it blow through me. And once I started doing that, it was amazing how comforting that wind felt. So nowadays, when the winds come, I remember that teaching, and I just take a nice deep breath in and go, yeah, the winds are here, right? Excuse me. But there's a deeper teaching in all of that, because the wind is just a symbol for how to live your life, really. This friend of mine and I were watching the Betty Broderick story. It's called Dirty John, years ago. And we started we were watching it separately in our own homes because it was, pandemic time. And so we started discussing all of the lessons that were there, because she happens to be in the same, she's in religious science as well. And what we started talking about is, and for those of you who aren't familiar with Betty Broderick and that whole story, she was, I don't even know I think she was a waitress or something like that, got married and put her husband through medical school, and then put her husband also through law school. And as the stereotypical situation goes, instead of them celebrating their newfound wealth and success together, he married his secretary. He divorced her and married his secretary. And the thing is that, that happens a lot. And I've been betrayed myself. I know that feeling. But if you get stuck in it, it completely destroys your life. And a lot of times we act against our own self-interest when we get into that place. And so Betty Broderick did just that. She was so angry and felt so betrayed and felt so powerless, because he was worth millions, and in the temporary orders, she received $9,000 a month. Now, I think that's a lot of money, especially in 1989. That was a lot of money. But because they had millions, he and his new wife had millions, she felt very betrayed that, she's not participating in the wealth. And so instead of moving on, instead of going, okay, this is my new reality now, I'm going to deal with it, she instead would have tantrums and act against her own self-interest. So, for instance, she would drive the cart through his house. She would go in while they were out of town and destroy everything in the house. She would call and scream at him and cuss at him and all of that. And so he started docking her for every instance, and reducing the $9,000 a month. And, even her son, there was one scene where her son was begging her on the phone, because she was acting this way. One time she felt like he wasn't paying enough attention to their kids. And so while they were on vacation, she set the kids outside his house until he got home. And so her kids were taken away from her, because she was neglecting them and abandoned them on his doorstep. So they're living with the dad, and the son is crying and saying, please, Mom, please stop. Just stop. We want to come live with you, but we can't as long as you're, doing all of this stuff. So you have to stop doing this stuff. And of course, her friends were telling her not to, to just move on and get over it. And he, of course, was saying, if you will stop doing all of this, I won't take money away from you anymore. So as it turns out, from the divorce, she ended up owing him money. In the final orders for the divorce, she ended up owing him money. But so the first season was all about her tantrums. The second season took the whole story back to when they first met and got together, and her putting him through school and all that. And all of the hardships they endured for her to be the sole provider while he was going to school, first for medical school and then for law school. I think she actually put him through college as well before all of that. But anyway, they were in a one-room apartment, where you pull the bed down from the wall, and they didn't have money for food a lot of the times, that kind of stuff. And so I get it. I mean, I totally get why she was angry. I totally get why she felt betrayed. I totally get all of that. But she ends up killing her ex-husband and his new wife. And so she goes to prison. And, I have my moments where I go through that, but I won't stay stuck in those emotions because they're detrimental to me. They don't really affect the other person at all. In fact, pretty much these days, there's not much that gets me riled up. I have one or two things that are triggers for me, but I try to process through it as quickly as possible. And as I've said before, I learned not to take it out on other people when I have that anger, because it doesn't mean, like experiencing your anger does not necessarily mean that you have to express it to the other person. What it means is that you need to acknowledge it inside of yourself that you're angry, and then try to breathe through it and meditate through it and pray through it, and just allow yourself to feel it and move on. But so much of the time, we as human doings, having a spiritual beings having a human experience, meaning we're human doings, so many times we are still grieving 10 years later, and unfortunately we don't let go of the past enough to experience the present. And we stay stuck in our anger and our betrayal and our feelings. We're in our feels, as they say. And what I want to remind us is that what our founder, Dr. Ernest Holmes, said is what you resist persists. And so I haven't done this in a while, so I'm going to do it. If you have anything wrong with your hand or your arm, please don't attempt this, because I don't want anybody to get hurt. But as long as you can do this exercise without pain, I'm going to show you a physical experience that you can do to remind yourself what resistance is like. So I want you to take your hand and put it like this. And I want you to, take your fingers and kind of put it as far back, far down as you can. And then I want you to close your eyes and stroke your hand and your arm, and just sort of let it relax. Let it just be okay. It's okay. Everything's safe. It feels good. And now open your eyes and do that again. And notice, I don't know if you can see my hand. This, I can get it all the way down to my shoulder because I've relaxed. When I'm resisting, it's actually painful. Okay. Ram Dass says that pain is, what is the quote? Pain is mandatory, suffering is optional. And so what happens when we resist change is that we cause more pain for ourselves because we can't let go and we can't move on. So, if we don't struggle against the winds of change, if we can just allow it to move through us, to embrace it, to turn and face it, we'll be a lot happier because we won't be suffering. It's the refusing to let go and the resisting that causes us all the pain. So let me do my pain is inevitable, suffering is optional. That was the quote. So right now, our world is all about change. Oh my goodness, there is so much change going on, and there's really three types of change. There is the change that we initiate, meaning like when we stop smoking, or we start eating better because we want to be healthier, or we start an exercise routine, or we do our spiritual practices consistently because we want to make a change in our life. Those are the conscious change. Those are the ones that we have decided to change something. When we leave a relationship that's not working for us, that is conscious change. The second kind of change is the kind that appears to be from the outside, but is really because we have limiting beliefs in our subjective mind that are keeping us from moving forward. For instance, if I start doing affirmations to be wealthy, or, prosperity affirmations or whatever, but I have something in my head that tells me, no, you aren't worthy of that, or you could never achieve that, or what makes you think you're worthy of that kind of money? That kind of stuff. You don't deserve it. That's the kind of change because when you start doing affirmations, anything that is opposite of that comes up to be taken a look at. And especially if we've got these beliefs there that are causing us to not be able to do that. So that's the kind of what I call subconscious change that looks like it's from the outside. The stock market crashes, for example. And, let me just share with you that in a good economy, there are people that lose money. And in a bad economy, there are people that make money. So it's also, it's subjective. It's not objective. And so if our experience in the past has been something, like the stock market crashing and we lost everything, then the next time there's even a little hint of something happening in the stock market, right away our beliefs jump in and we start making changes that are just crazy, because we believe we're going to lose everything again. That's the kind of change that looks like it's from the outside, but is really as a result of our beliefs and our limiting beliefs in particular. And then there is the kind of change that is definitely from the outside that, other than our collective awareness causing it, it is not something we're implementing the change. So a perfect example was the coronavirus, during the pandemic. It wasn't that, I personally experienced corona because of limiting beliefs in my body, right, or in my mind. But there was a collective consciousness about, what something could look like. And so that's what we got. And I'm not blaming us, really. It's not about blame. What I'm saying is that change really came from outside. It wasn't something we could will away, for example. It wasn't something we could change. It was just thrust upon us, so to speak. And, I know everybody suffered. I kind of had a little bit more of it than most people because I lost 12 friends and acquaintances to it. And my husband, Reverend Lynn, got a lung transplant. And so for 5 years, we were in a mask everywhere we went. Even in my business, like I had the protocols that they put in place for the shutdown really have been in operation before the shutdown in my office, because he was getting evaluated for the lung transplant. So we had to protect him, because if he got sick, he wouldn't qualify. So I started wearing a mask like before even 2020. And then, of course, with the pandemic, we really had to be careful because he had his lung transplant in December of 2020. And so we wore a mask all the time. Like, it was done through a study with UC Med, the Anschutz campus. And the beauty of that was we paid like $900 for his surgery, which was almost $1 million. The bad news about being part of a study is that they own you because when they get ready to do your surgery, you sign off, your life to them. And so they made us get all these vaccinations. And one of them was a flu vaccination that 20 years prior to this, I had a flu vaccination and got very, very sick for about 3 weeks. And so I never got another one. And they were like, well, you have to get a flu shot. And I'm like, I can't do the flu shot. I get sick. And they're like, no, you have to, because if you get the flu, he will die. Okay, fine. So I did. And at first I didn't have any symptoms, and then it took me down. But that's the kind of thing that you realize later what you signed on for. Anyway, so the coronavirus really has changed our entire reality. Not only my personal reality, because now after my husband's death, I still don't have any antibodies because we wore masks so long. And so when I got sick this last time, I got pneumococcal pneumonia. And I was sick for like 3 months, like deathly ill, which is why I broke my back, because I was coughing so much. So it really has changed our total reality. There are restaurants that shut down that will never come back. There are stores that have shut down that will never come back. And so that reality has changed forever. But and we can either struggle against it, or we can embrace it, embrace the less activity or the less contact or whatever. But we do meditation and prayer to put ourselves in a peaceful state, because sooner or later this too shall pass. It always does. Not coronavirus. I don't think that'll ever go away. But the discomfort that we felt in wearing masks, the discomfort we felt in not being able to embrace our loved ones. My sister and I were raised to be real huggy kissy, because that was the way our family was. And so for 3 years, I couldn't be that close to my sister. So she lived up in the mountains, and she would come and sit on my porch 6 feet away so that we could have some time together. But we couldn't hug and kiss, except when we went on vacation. Now that was a whole other thing, because then I'd just come home and isolate for 3 days, quarantine. But I couldn't do that every time I saw her. So we just sort of lived with that reality. But the discomfort of all of that eventually leaves. We say, yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. It doesn't say, it says, yea, though I will pass through. It doesn't mean that I sit and pitch a tent there, right? And so that's the thing that begins to cause us to have less than a joyful reality, is that we resist the change, we get stuck in it, and we pitch a tent there. And then pretty soon it's taken over our life. So with the winds of change, we're going to let it move through us and make it our ally. Another one is what's going on with the political situation. That's not something I generated personally. I think there was a collective consciousness about it that is limiting our freedoms. And so now the way we work with that is, instead of resisting it, I'm not talking about activism. I believe in activism. That's not the issue. But it's our feelings. It's what we get into with that resistance that makes it painful, right? And so how we work with that material is to do spiritual practices that lighten the load, so to speak. And we're no longer at the effect of all those changes that are happening, that they don't have any power over us. Let me put it that way. I love the serenity prayer because I think it applies to all of this. God grant us the, here we go. God grant us the serenity to accept the things we cannot change, the courage to change the things we can, and the wisdom to know the difference. So here we are with, coronavirus and the political situations all over the world. And so we need to accept that we can't change that. We can't go back to the past and change that coronavirus ever happened. We can't will it away. We can't will away all the political changes all over the world. We can't will away the violence or anything like that. So the power comes from our ability to accept that we can't change that. Then there's the things that we can change. Now, I want to go over the creative process here real quick. Because this is where our power comes from. This is our teaching symbol. And you will notice that it's in a circle, which is the unbroken unity of all of life. And then it's, even though you can't split God into 3 parts, it has 3 parts just for the purpose of being able to explain things. So we have the top, the middle, and the bottom. And then we have the V, which passes through all of those and goes back up. And so what we say is, in God's consciousness, the top is where God thought us into being. And the middle portion is the God stuff that we are made of, the material that we're made of. A lot of times when I talk about how the molecules bump up against each other to create something solid or not as fast, so it's air or water or, the human being or whatever. And then the bottom part is about form. So that is all of us, right? And all of God's creations. And so the creative process here is coming from the conscious thought into the subjective mind, down into form, and back up to the nothingness from which it came. And that's how God thought us into being, but that's also how our life works. So I have a conscious thought about how I want my life to be. And it has to pass through that subjective material in the middle there, which is like a computer that records, a computer hard drive, which records every experience we've ever had and our reaction to it. And that is where our limiting beliefs are formed. That's where all our thought processes are happening. And so when we have that conscious thought and we throw it down there, a lot of times it doesn't even make it to form because we have a limiting belief that bounces it back right back up. And then there's the unconscious creation that starts in the middle from our limiting beliefs, goes down into form without our consent, right? The good news about all of this is that it's like planting a seed in the soil, right? The process is it goes down through creating the flowers or the plants or whatever. And then when it becomes dormant, it passes back into the nothingness from which it came. That's where our power lies. Because if we've created something we don't like, we can always go back and change it by working with our limiting beliefs, working with everything that's in our subjective mind. And so that is how we have the courage to change the things we can. We're not stuck there, which is where blame lives, is like, oh God, look what I created. I can't, I'm limited by it. No, when we take responsibility, we're saying, I created it, therefore I can uncreate it and create something better. So that's where the courage to change things comes from. And then there's the wisdom to know the difference. And I think it's very important that we do understand what we can change and what we can't. We can't change another person. We can't change a circumstance that has already happened. We can't change the past. We can't change anyone else's reality. We can't make someone love us. We can't make someone behave the way we want them to. We can't make a place. A lot of times we'll go somewhere and have this experience, and then we want to go recreate that experience. And it's something that happened. It's something we experienced, and it's ready. It's the process is letting go of that experience, creating new experiences somewhere else. But we get stuck in that stuff, and we resist giving that up. We resist moving forward. And so it's really good for us to know why, what we can change, what we can't change, and to know the difference between. I'm not saying give in to the virus, by the way, or give in to the political climate, but we're going to practice serenity with it instead of angst. And it does take courage to change things, because even if it is a change you wanted, you're going to have some grief over it. I mean, for instance, when you get married, when you get married, you realize you have given up your prior life, and that's not always comfortable. Or like Faith experienced, at 18, she wanted out of her house. She wanted to get away from her family. She wanted to be on her own. She wanted to have this life. And she thought she was going to be having fun and partying all the time. And then reality struck once she was in it that, now that she had to pay rent and all these utilities and everything else, that there wasn't enough money to live that kind of life. And then she started grieving what it was like to live at home and not have those bills, so that she had more freedom. So it's all in your perception, really. But that's the kind of stuff that happens when we make a change. We still grieve what happened, or we still grieve, the past. But we recognize that we can't really change the past, and we've made a decision, and we're going to stick with it because there are benefits that we didn't have in the past. So, but it does take courage to stick with it, to really stick it out, realizing that all of those changes come with consequences. Let's put it that way. Let's see. The other thing is, we embrace change because there's a greater reality that we want to celebrate. For instance, I went to Vegas one year and I was so miserable. I don't know if it was sleeping in the wrong, a different bed, or if somehow I was uncomfortable in the airplane because I sleep when I'm on the airplane. And I didn't realize it, but my neck and my shoulders and my back were so sore. Even my legs. I was having trouble with my legs. So I went to a massage therapist there, and she goes, well, it's your IT band. Those of you who've never had your IT band worked on, oh my God, it hurts so bad. But I learned from getting massage that you breathe through it. You don't pull away, like you don't brace for the wind. You don't pull away from the masseuse's hands. And so even though it was one of the most painful massages I've ever had, I stuck through it. I breathed through it and I stuck through it because I did know at the end that I would feel better. And I was like a new person after that. So that's one of the things we need to remember when we're working with this material, is that we need to breathe through it and recognize that the pain shall pass. This too shall pass. Not that the coronavirus will pass, or not that, the political climate is going to go away, but that we can experience serenity right there in that moment if we are willing to allow it to move through us, to breathe through it, to relax into it, to open to it. And that's really the process for anything, but most importantly, change. So at this moment, I've been listening to all these people talk about how we're getting up-leveled to a 5D reality. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. But I do know that it gives me some hope that all of the stuff that's happening right now is happening as a kind of purge, that we are getting rid of the old earth so that the new earth can come in. And having given me hope allows me to just relax into it, to know that everything that's happening is happening for a reason. I've always thought that, but sometimes it's hard to understand what those reasons are. But I'm really sure that there is a purpose to all of this. There's a purpose to I don't know. I don't want to get into the politics, but there's a purpose to all of it. And we're not privy to that information at this time. Uh-oh. I hope I didn't. Oh, I hope that was a cough drop. And so I focus on knowing that it has a purpose, and that eventually we will know what that purpose is. And they're talking about like headaches and things like that being some of the symptoms of this purge going on. And it's an up-leveling of our consciousness and our vibration. So that's what I'm focused on. So this week, I'd like you to concentrate on understanding first what changes are going on in your life, whether they are conscious or unconscious, or really from the outside in. And once you've identified that, practicing the serenity prayer, because serenity is really where it's at with all of this. If you resist, it will just persist. If you can open yourself to the new reality and celebrate the serenity, your life will be so much better. So this week, I'd like you to practice that, to really understand that there are some changes that we cannot make. And there are some changes we can make if we're willing to work, or have the courage to work through everything, all the limiting beliefs that are causing this reality. And really celebrating that we have the wisdom to know the difference between what we can change and what we can't change. So will you do that with me this week? Will you kind of just sit and really think about, whether this is a conscious change, a subconscious change, an outside change, and what you're going to do about it, and then work on that that idea of serenity in the midst of all of this. Can you do that this week? Let's have a prayer. Right now, I turn my awareness to the infinite power, the infinite presence of God. To that place within me that knows beyond human understanding just how powerful God really is, how wonderful, how amazing, how beautiful and loving and powerful God is. And that is where I find myself, in the midst of God, my very essence, my very life, my very being. It is who and what I am, and every thought, every action, every deed is guided and led by that ancient wisdom of the ages that flows through all. I know the same truth to be so for this team that God has provided me. For Faith and for Oz and for Tina and for Karen and for Elaine. Because we are all blessed with that infinite power, that infinite presence residing in and through and around us. And we live in that moment of pure power, understanding that we are guided and led by that ancient wisdom of the ages that flows through us as well as everything else and everyone else. I know that same truth to be so for everyone who's listening to this, whether that be in real time or later on. For we are all connected by it, through it, as it. And our entire lives are supported and powered by that God life, that wisdom that flows through all. The wisdom of the ages. And so, the Taki Asen, all my brethren, we are connected. We are related. So this coming week is really blessed with opportunities for us to examine what kind of change we are experiencing, and opportunities to practice the serenity, to know what we can change, to know what we cannot change, and to know the difference. As we grow in this awareness, as our reality begins to shift towards the positive, as we begin to initiate the changes within our own mind, we begin to see how that changes our outer world. So I claim that for us. I know that this week is just so powerful for us as we embrace these changes. I know that same truth to be so for everyone who is listening, whether that's in real time or later on, because that same power, that same influence, that same amazing, incredible energy of God flowing through us all is present in whatever we're experiencing. So no matter what the challenge, God is the answer. And I pull back the veil and reveal this truth here and now, as I claim it as good and very good in their names. Gratitude just fills my heart. I move in the face of gratitude to know that this is so, to let it be. And so it is. Amen.
You are the heart, you are the hands, you are the voice of spirit on earth, and who you are, and all you do is a blessing to the world. You are the hands, you are the voice of spirit on earth. And who you are and all you do is a blessing to the world.
Thank you, Faith. Right now is our opportunity to receive your gifts, tithes, and offerings, and your opportunity to share gratitude for that which you have experienced in the physical realm, or perhaps what you have created in the mind of God and have not yet experienced in that bottom part of that in form. So in a moment, I'm going to ask you to go to www.oasiscsl.org and do the offering affirmation with me. That's about 2/3 down the page. And underneath that is a Contribute Now button. So let me briefly say something about contributions. When we're in a facility, there's rent and utilities and all kinds of costs that are associated with the facility that when people contribute, that's what they're contributing to mostly. Right now, the only two expenses we have is that I pay Faith to be my assistant because she works so hard, and marketing to the global world. We already have people from Germany, the UK or England, the Netherlands or Holland, the Philippines, India, Bangladesh. There's another one I can never remember. But we really want to advertise to the whole global world because our vision is a healed world. And our mission is to heal the world one person at a time. So in order to do that, we have to market and, reach people. So when you press that Contribute Now button, what you're doing is you're helping us get to our vision through our mission. All right. So right now, whether you're watching this in real time or later on, please now go to www.oasiscsl.org and say this offering affirmation with me. It's like 2/3 down the page. This perfect gift is spirit and form, circulating and blessing all it touches. Freely I give and joyously I receive, and so it is. Hit that Contribute Now button and help us get to our vision through our mission. All right. I'm going to try to make these announcements as brief as possible because I got way too long-winded today. Sometimes it happens. I've been really good about not being late recently, but we're having issues now because of it. All right. First, please let me say that we have licensed practitioners from coast to coast who serve our church. One way that they do that is by providing spiritual mind treatment, our form of prayer, every day for a week. So if you would like prayer for something, please put it in the comments. If you don't want it to be public, DM Faith. And she will make sure our God Squad gets it. We call them the God Squad because I have this image that ran through my head in like 1998 of the practitioners marching in and taking charge. So we call them the God Squad. So if you would like prayer for something, again, put it in the comment section or DM Faith, and she'll make sure that the God Squad gets those prayer requests. The second way that our licensed practitioners serve our church is by providing spiritual guidance by appointment for a fee. So at the moment, Oz is the only one practicing. So you can reach out to him via Messenger. Let him know that you would like a session for spiritual guidance. He will let you know how to pay for it. I don't get involved in that. Practitioners have their own business, and some use PayPal, some Venmo, some Zelle, some Cash App, Wise, and there's a couple of others. They'll let you know how to pay for it, and then they will video chat you at the appointed time. Okay. The third way that our practitioners serve our church is what Oz does every week, and that is Practitioner of the Day, where he does the invocation, the benediction, and at the end does our 1-minute miracle. Not a time for counseling, but a time where you can let him know what you're experiencing, and he will stop, drop, and pray with you right then and there. I'm going to actually skip the Mala bead thing today. If you would like to know more about it, watch one of our other videos. Again, I don't want to keep you guys too long, so I'm going to skip over a lot of stuff here. Please, we like to support those who support us. So I'd like to refer you to Reverend Fairy Lane Silver's website. It's there on the screen. She is unable to change the website to show how to pay for it. So go on the website and look at the CDs, decide which one you want, email her. She'll tell you how to pay for it once it's paid for. She's really good about sending them out right away. She travels the country singing and playing guitar, and she carries the CDs in her trunk, and she's really good about making sure they get to you fast. The other one is Karen Drucker. Karen Drucker, you can pay for it there. You can buy it by the song, the CD. Today's CD was The Joy of Love. A lot of our music comes from Karen Drucker. The song that Faith just got through singing is a perfect example. You Are a Blessing to the World. That comes from Karen Drucker. A lot of our beginning music comes from Karen Drucker. So definitely get on her website. She's got songbooks, karaoke files, anything you would possibly want from her is available. Both artists are available on Spotify, by the way. So you would ask Alexa or Google to play, their music on Spotify. All right. And then our website, www.oasiscsl.org, is completely out of date. We're working on it. We will get there. In the meantime, video sermons are available on YouTube. Audio sermons from the years prior are available on SoundCloud, and all of that is under S. Tucker. So definitely check all those out. All right, I'm going to turn this over to Oz. Maybe. There he is.
And I know that right here, right now, that God's presence is always there through anything that happens and all that occurs. That God's presence is manifesting and creating all things anew. We've got real lighting issues today. But I know this is good and very good, and I let it be. There it is. And so it is.
And so it is. Yeah, I've got lighting issues too. I forgot I turned on the overhead. It washes me right completely out. All right. Oh, goodness. Thank you so much for being here. I know there's 1,000 places you could be on a Sunday morning, and you were here with us. We're very blessed to have you. Join us next week and every week at 10:30 a.m. Mountain Time on U.S. time. Until then, stay safe. We love you. Bye.